Welcome to Dimensional Shift, a gathering of the spiritually awakening and awake who are helping shift the energy away from duality and to the central nexus point, a place where dualities can be synthesized back into unity. Our mission is to deprogram our minds so that we can break down the system, regain free will, and shift the paradigm back into oneness as it was intended. Hey, and welcome back to Dimensional Shift. This week we're going to be talking about spiritual targeting, and I want to start out with a little bit of talk about how these things can make us feel a little bit strange or almost like we're going to be perceived as delusional or crazy. So the first thing I want to do is just assure you that you're not crazy. This stuff happens, and there's a lot more people that go through it than you might actually think, so you're not alone. There are several different types of targeting that can happen for someone who has the propensity to awaken. These include things like physical attacks, which would be something like an abduction, or physical attacks through people or entities. It can also be like an attachment, something that attaches to your energy field and almost feeds off of you energetically, which is kind of how the archons or the agents or however you describe them do anyway. Often, not always, but often. And it can be extremely draining, and it can almost drain the life out of you at times. I've recently removed an attachment from myself that was very strong and it was very difficult to remove. It was on the back of my neck, and it had this barb going up through the nape of my neck and into my pineal gland. And removing that, it was extremely difficult, number one, but removing it has really helped me lose a lot of pain in my neck and back and start to go back into a state of receptivity for connecting with different kinds of galactic beings and source and my higher self and all of that. It had gotten really blocked for a while, and I think it was just because this attachment was there. Other things that can happen would be things through your relationships. So narcissists, abusers, any kind of trauma you've gone through. This can be people in your family. It can be relationships you attract later. It can be random one-time events such as sexual assault or a violent crime kind of thing. There can also be just a regular run-of-the-mill psychic attack, which can be extremely powerful. These ones are meant to make you check out, generally, and keep you pushed under things like intrusive thoughts and intense negative energies to make you want to disconnect and dissociate from reality, or whatever we perceive here as reality. There's also illness and injury. This is an interesting one I'm going through as well right now. I have a secondary attachment, or it's part of the first attachment that I haven't fully gotten rid of, but it's affecting my liver. And so I'm working through that and trying to get this attachment removed so that my liver goes back to normal functioning. I will keep you guys posted on that one. It can also cause emotional dysregulation and or disturbances. So those days where you wake up and life just seems like crap and you're grumpy and you don't want to talk to anybody, you might just take a moment and say, what's going on here? Is there something manipulating my energy? Is there something preying on me? Is there intrusive thoughts coming in that are causing this emotional dysregulation? What's going on? And lastly, there can be something like just we think of as bad luck or unfortunate events or influencing others or your circumstances. This can be something like influencing someone to drive drunk and then they hit you and you get into a bad car accident, or just kind of a low-grade bad luck, nothing ever seems to go your way kind of thing, and it's depressing and it keeps you pushed down all the time. So why are spiritual people targeted? There is an obvious answer, and that's because we're a threat, but I think there's some other layers to it as well. Number one, we're more conscious. We have a higher baseline awareness of what's actually going on. We're We more easily get a glimpse of the truth through the lies. And because of that, we're more aware of the pain and suffering. And we're also more aware of the pain and suffering of others. Whether you're an empath or not, we have compassion for others. And so we often feel their pain, or we often feel bad for them because of what they're going through. And that compounds our own suffering. We also feel a lot more deeply. And so someone who says a negative comment to me often wounds me more than it might wound somebody else. And part of that's programming, yes, but part of it is, to my next point, we just don't understand why the world operates this way. We have a much better connection to the realm beyond, however you want to think of that, as heaven or pleroma or whatever it is. And there's a very big disconnect between the reality we expected here and the reality that there is here. And so there's a sense of, why does it have to be this way? Why do people treat each other this way? I just want to go back to kind of the better place that we were in, where things were gentle and innocent and benevolent and nobody ever assumed bad things about you, kind of thing. And so because of all of these things, we probably produce more loosh for the entities, the parasites, the archons, whatever you want to call them. Number one, because we feel more deeply. Number two, because we take on others' pain and their pain hurts us. And so there's this compounding effect. And so the intensity of our suffering creates more payoff for them. And then the confusion about why we feel this way and why we're so miserable, especially being spiritual people, preys on us even more. And I'm going to go into how they weaponize spirituality against us a little bit later. But it creates confusion, and that deepens the pain for us. And then the last is, yes, we're a threat. We are breaking down the matrix, the illusion, whatever you want to call it. And they are working as hard as they can to keep us shut down in whatever way they can. So they're going to keep drawing you under. They're going to keep reminding you through those intrusive thoughts and all of that of all your woes. They're going to keep exes coming back to bug you. They're going to keep family members that you don't like keep showing up. They're going to keep reminding you of all the trauma that you've been through. There's going to be triggers. And they're going to keep you blaming yourself, and they're going to keep you confused in whatever way they can. And so one of the biggest keys is recognizing when you're triggered and validating yourself and validating your feelings, but moving past the programming. Healing the trauma and moving past the programming are so vitally important at this point. They're also going to be pushing you toward negative coping mechanisms like numbing agents, substance abuse, any kind of addictive behaviors. Those are going to be huge. I think that everybody on this planet is addicted. I think that's part of the system. But when we feel pain so deeply, we choose some of the more harsh options for that. Stuff like, hard drugs, alcohol, social media, anything that's going to kill hours of our time where we don't have to be here mentally and emotionally. We're just out of our body mentally and emotionally. And it also wastes the time of our life, like our natural time. Years go by and we still haven't gotten on with the awakening process and doing the things that we need to do. So how do we wake up then? If we're spiritually targeted and they're trying to keep us pushed under, how do we even wake up? My theory is because we produce more loosh, they get a better payoff for it. They push too far. They get greedy. And they underestimate us. We're naturally inclined to wake up because we have a higher baseline of consciousness. We're more inclined to wake up. And when they get greedy, that starts to trigger us. And we start saying, this is too much. We start saying, the world doesn't have to be this way. At least I can make myself a better person and hopefully help one person. If I can just help one person my whole entire life, then I will be happy. That's literally how Dimensional Shifter started, was I'm going to make this podcast, and if one person takes something from it and it helps them, then I'm happy. We also have a natural impulse for good. That's something that can't be traumatized out of us. That spark, that soul connection to source, that's there, and we are naturally, impulsively good people. When somebody gets hurt, we're the first ones to run over and say, "Are you okay?" When somebody looks sad, we reach out and say, "Can I help?" Those kinds of things. It's a natural urge for us to want to help. And that's not something that can ever really truly be hypnotized out of us or traumatized out of us or anything else. We're also drawn to others who have messages for us to wake up. Throughout my life, there have been key people that have been almost like strategically placed at certain times in my life for a certain kind of awakening point. So when I was 12, I had some woman, totally random, she gave me this half a walnut shell that had a perfect heart inside where the walnut had fallen out. And she said, "Here, look, there's love in everything." And I was 12. I'm like, that's cool, and I didn't really get it, but it has stuck with me. And I've thought about it almost every day of my life since. And stories like that come up all the time where there's always some kind of random event or synchronicity that leads you to connections pointing you in the right direction. So whether that's source guiding us or our higher self or future self leaving clues or whatever it is, we have laid out a path to help us get through this as well. And we are naturally drawn to others who are more awake, and then our awakeness combines and fuels each other into waking up even further. So they have been recently, it's not recently, but with the starseed movement, it's become kind of recently. They've been weaponizing spirituality. And what I mean by this is they've taken concepts like mirroring and projection and manifestation, and they have made them into ways that it's either all our fault or we're a failure. In spiritual communities, whenever somebody says, "This person is really abusing me," or "they're narcissistic," or whatever it is, people say, "Well, they're just mirroring you," or maybe you're projecting on them. And unless you're going to provide strategies to make that not happen, it's really not helpful. Telling somebody that they're just mirroring you is like telling them that they're being abused and it's their fault. It feels really awful. And telling somebody that you're projecting on their abuser or someone who has been manipulating and controlling them is also really unhelpful, and it does more harm than good. And after manifestation became this big, high-dollar, luxury life type thing, it became easy for it to become a failure, for people to feel like a failure because they weren't doing that. They weren't manifesting millions of dollars. They weren't manifesting their dream life and all of that. And I have thoughts on the way manifestation works on a prison planet anyway, but I'm not going to share that today. I think I'm going to wait until maybe next week for that. But because they're weaponizing all of these against us, we have to be super on guard. These are just traps that have been laid to keep us derailed and to keep us distracted and to keep us chasing millions of dollars and to keep worrying about, why am I such a failure, right? To keep us spiraling in that. And so what can we do? There's a few things that I've listed here that can be helpful. The first is, if you haven't listened to episode 18 about psychic defense, go ahead and listen to that. That will really help. There are a lot of protective auras that can really help against psychic attacks and preserving some of your energy by cloaking yourself for a while so they're not able to draw that energy off of you. You can also cleanse your energy field or your aura. There's a couple of good tools you can use for that, like crystals, and there's also different kinds of subtle energy work, like Reiki or quantum healing modalities, things like that. It's really, 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 really important that you get to know yourself and you get to know what your intuition feels like. Because then when those intrusive thoughts start coming in, you can start saying, okay, intuition, connection to source, tell me is there something here that I need to actually fix, or is this just the programmed chatter in my head that I need to tell be quiet? And the last and probably the most important thing you can do, besides connecting to your intuition, is connecting to others for support. Because when you get in a place where you're feeling really trapped or down or spiraling, the best thing you can do is to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I need some help. If you need some safe people to talk to, come and join our Discord. We have a few really good advanced souls who are willing to listen and able to help you out. And we do it without judgment. We do it without any kind of hierarchy. It's really a very safe place to explore those parts of yourself and to start getting rid of that programming. You can find the Discord sign up at dimensionalshifter.com/Discord. Thanks for tuning in today. If you love this episode, please leave a 5-star review and share it with a friend so we can continue to share the message of synthesis into unity. Don't forget to join the Discord server at dimensionalshifter.com/Discord, and make sure to join our open discussions each Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Central and Saturdays at 1 p.m. Central in the server. You can also find me on Reddit. My subreddit is r/dimensionalshifters with an S, or send me a DM. My username is dimensionalshifter.